Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. We've made it to another Friday, aren't we? So grateful.
Thank God it's Friday.
Exactly. Thank God it is Friday. Let me tell you about what is happening around the world. Now, this week we've covered chaos from South Korea to France and post-election violence in Africa. But this morning, a story ricocheting across the world is that of the shooting death of an insurance executive in New York. Now, United Healthcare boss Brian Thompson, 50 years old, he was fatally shot in the back on Wednesday morning outside the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Police in New York have released 2 photos of an unmasked individual wanted for questioning over the killing. Investigators are also using facial recognition technology and bullet casings with cryptic messages saying deny, defend, and depose on them to track down the suspect. They have yet to reveal a motive in the shooting. And to some more positive news now. An Ivory Coast beloved staple, acheke, made from fermented cassava flour, has officially been added to UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage. Nicknamed Ivorian couscous, it is typically eaten with grilled fish and vegetables and all of the like. It originated from the coastal areas of the country centuries ago, but is now popular across West Africa. Also, Japanese sake, an alcoholic beverage made from grains, was also added to the list this year. Now, the UNESCO list highlights intangible cultural heritage that are at risk, emphasizing the need to protect and preserve traditional practices. Now, the inclusion of acheke highlights its importance to humanity as a collective. That's what UNESCO says. I don't know if any of you, my friends, have had acheke before. I have. It's delicious. It is.
Constantly now.
Really?
Acheke.
Oh, that's true. Me too. I also had it in Abidjan too.
Yes, constantly in Abidjan, so I'm
Yes.
not surprised.
Yes.
It's a culture on its own in Abidjan.
I was surprised to hear that it's under threat, and that's why the UNESCO have added it to its
No,
list.
but I don't know what they are. Maybe they don't come to Abidjan. It's everywhere in Abidjan. You have acheke and Abidjan. But as regards the killing of very sad one.
Absolutely.
So some of the investigations, they've actually been able to put a face to him. So they've been able to get his face from the hostel he went after that shooting. They've also tried as much as possible to get records from the electric bike that he did use to run away. He shot him at close range. And those, letters that were written, deny and all of that, was in reference also to a book that was talking about how insurance companies do treat them. His wife, Brian's wife, did confirm that he had gotten a couple of threats and all of that. But we don't know what is happening as regards that. He was in New York for a conference. He just walked out of his hotel, was getting into the Hilton when he was shot. But they've also put a bounty out there for $10,000. Hopefully they'll be able to get this killer. But it's a very sad one. And it just shows that, hey, this is New York. Nobody's even safe anywhere in the world in the first place. But as regards the acheke story, very good, very spot on. I mean, acheke is very lovely. Dr. Mati, have you tried acheke out? Lovely.
He said, of course.
Ayos tried it out.
I haven't. No, I haven't. I just think it sounds nice. I'm thinking of Gary. But they say it's like couscous.
Yes, it's more like couscous.
So, there's also
like
something close to around it here.
Yeah.
Which Coco Gary?
No. Oh, it's Coco Gary.
Coco Gary.
Maybe I know it by another
Coco
name.
Gary and edible worm. You don't know edible worm? You don't eat edible worm?
No, I don't eat edible worm. Have you eaten edible worm?
And peanut butter?
I have never.
No, I'm not eating. Dr. What have you eaten edible worm?
But you know Coco Gary?
Okay, I don't know that. I don't know, and I've never eaten. And I don't think
As an
I'll ever
Ijebu
want
girl,
to try
I have
edible worm.
ever heard
So
of
when
But I
you
know
are
that it's
married
a
to a man with dead time, you know it's Coco Gary and edible worm.
But yeah, let me talk about that. It's a Friday, so lighthearted. I'm really sad about the killings, but again, it's great to see that his face has been. There's more revelation, and even on X, there's a call for people out there to come forward with information. I'm almost certain that they're going to get him very soon. They've been able to trace him. It's difficult to get away with a crime in America because of technology and being able to trace his movement. So he'll probably be apprehended in a few days. But for ICH, Intangible Cultural Heritage, was actually a convention in 2002 by UNESCO, and it is to promote or to acknowledge cultural identity of certain community groups. So this is what it is. There was a bit of a controversy, I think, last year at a food competition where another country won best food for acheke, and the Ivorians kicked against this. So it's good to see that now this is now their exclusive
Absolutely.
preserve. It's like jollof rice. We need an ICH on
Do you know,
jollof rice.
and I
Let's
think
finally find out who.
war, honestly.
Is it the Gambians? Is it the Senegalese people?
Yes.
Is it Nigerians? Maybe we're third or so. But we're going to finally put that.
But we have a variation of jollof rice.
What is
You know
that?
banga rice.
I know banga rice, yeah.
That one, you know.
So, it would be great to, but it just shows the power and the beauty of culture and how food plays a huge role. And to see how we also promote our own delicacy. And, sometimes we have those battles, friendly battles amongst tribes or soups, food that's indigenous to particular tribes. So it's great to see that this is being recognized. I wonder which Nigerian staple would gain UN cultural heritage status. Maybe amala and ewedu and gbegiri.
As an Ijebu girl, I'd have to say Eba, because, that's my favorite.
Ikokore.
Ikokore, thank you.
Ikokore
Thank you. You're going to mix it with meat and fish, yes.
And kodeba. Or
Delicious.
egusi and
We're certainly not warm.
Kodeba and ikokore.
Food is part of world heritage.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's also linked to identity.
Yes.
As communities, develop, they had come up with their own culinary contribution
Yes.
to world heritage. And it is important that UNESCO is not just recognizing these cultural landmarks with regard to sites. Only recently we were talking about President Biden visiting Angola, visiting a major World Heritage site. So it's not just monuments, it's also about the food that the people eat, to preserve identity and to link identity to brand. Now, when you talk about teke anywhere, they will say, oh, it's from Ivory Coast.
Yes.
And there's so many, within that range. If you go to Togo, they eat jekume. If you jekume, there's something they call jekume. If you go to, the Ijebu people,
Yeah.
they tell you about Ibirikpo.
Ebiriku and ikokore.
And Kokore and all of that. If you go to Akwa Ibom State, they will tell you, Ede Gainkan. If you go to Calabar, they say Afang soup. If you go to Owerri, they say
Ofe Owerri.
Owerri. So you have all of this. And there's a stage it reaches and it gains global recognition. It's all about preserving global heritage. But to talk about the man that assassinated Brian Thompson, 50-year-old, of United Health, the largest insurance operation in the United States. Now, in the front page of one of the UK papers today, it's referred to as a smiling assassin. The smiling assassin, because having committed that crime, they were able to show his face and he was shown smiling. It's also been discovered by New York police that he used a silencer,
Yes.
which Mayor Adams says is surprising. He being a veteran of the New York Police Department, he even never used a silencer in his career. 2, the coffee cup that he purportedly used, they've been able to trace it for DNA. The bullet casings, they found on it, deny, defend, depose.
Yes.
Now, the deny, defend, depose is said to be linked to opponents of the insurance industry. And the reference is to a 2010 book called Deny, Defend, How Insurance Companies Refuse to Pay and What You Need to Know, by Professor J. Feynman of Rutgers University. The police have tried to approach him to get his idea, but he refused to comment. The depose is what was added to it. But in any case, it is assumed is related to, objections to the practice of the insurance companies. And it was in that context that his wife said he had been receiving threats lately. He was going to give a lecture to make some remarks at a conference, at an investors conference in the hotel before it was gone down. So this is the risk, that many people face. It's not only journalists who face risks, occupational hazards,
Yes.
even in other professions, there are risks that are involved. But our expectation is that law enforcement, in the United States, where, cases like this never go cold, they will stay on it, will be able to identify him. The speculation is that he came from Atlanta, Georgia, to New York days before via a bus. So they have a trail.
Yes.
But it is not confirmed yet that the picture of the man that is in circulation
Is actually...
is the actual person who did the shooting.
Yes.
That's the narrative about that.
Thank you all for your comments, and as you've all said, it is very, very much a very serious story, isn't it? And I do think that, as you touched on, Dr. Abati, when we're looking at healthcare and medical insurance in the United States, it seems to be such a grave situation in so many places. Yeah. We have no idea what the motivation behind this attack is, and there is no excuse for it. But it would be interesting to find out whether or not this person had any type of familial issue. Perhaps a member of his family wasn't covered for an operation. Perhaps that person, we have no idea, but it just shows that the healthcare situation in America can have dire and grave consequences. Let's move on now to newspaper headlines from across the globe. And as always, we begin in Nigeria with This Day. And This Day leads this morning with Senate Majority Leader Opeyemi Bamidele yesterday maintaining that the tax reform bills currently before the upper chamber were very much alive, saying at no time were the proposed legislations suspended by lawmakers. Moving on to the Daily Independent and the Daily Sun, they both lead with the same sentiment, the same news coming from the Senate. The New Telegraph, however, despite also leading with this update from the Senate, also features a story on the House of Representatives member Ehiateke Ibori Suenu, who is the daughter of former Delta State Governor James Ibori, who has now defected from the PDP to the APC. Essentially, she says that she was excluded by the Delta State chapter of the party. The Punch reports on state governors who borrowed 533 billion naira, generated 1.92 trillion naira in internally generated revenue, and serviced debt with 658 billion naira. A total of 29 state governors spent 1.99 trillion naira on recurring expenditure, including refreshments, sitting allowances, traveling, and utilities in the first 9 months of 2024. That's according to Punch and their investigations. Now, moving on to The Guardian this morning, it leads with the findings of the National Health and Demography Survey, which finds a spike in the number of teenage pregnancy cases amid dire public health services and social concern. Now, the caricature on the front page shows a young girl in her school uniform, visibly pregnant, being flogged, while a young boy, assumably responsible for that pregnancy, faces no such punishment and is able to continue and excel in school. To African papers now, and the Citizen of South Africa reports on the shock drop in water purity in certain regions of the country. The drinking water in South Africa has been backsliding since 2014, and a staggering 46% achieved poor or bad microbiological water quality, according to a recent report released by South Africa's Department of Water and Sanitation. And lastly, British papers this morning, including the Daily Telegraph, lead with reactions to Sir Keir Starmer's plan for change. It includes 6 milestones he wants the voting public to measure his government against at the next general election. These are putting more money in the pockets of working people, building 1.5 million homes, and fast-tracking planning decisions on at least 150 major infrastructural products, as well as treating 92% of NHS patients within 18 weeks, recruiting 13,000 more police officers, special constables, and PCSOs in neighbourhood roles, making sure 3/4 of 5-year-olds are school ready, and 95% clean power by 2030. So many people will be keeping their eyes open on this new Labour government's first term, or this term in office, and see whether or not they keep to their word.
Very ambitious, at least he set it out.
He did.
In this part of the world, we don't have leaders. When you ask them for empirical projections of what they're going to do, they say, please keep quiet. But at least he set it out. But I'm very sure that he will not be able to meet most of those demands. For example, the 1.5 million homes, I'm very sure it's going to be low on cash. And also the fact that, they've been having a lot of cuts, even with school funding and all of that. So it's going to have challenges as regards that. But as regards the state governors, it shows that the governors are not accountable. How can you be making less in your entire generated revenue and are spending more of those money on utilities and on other things? It's a very sad indication. If that was a company, it would be a company in deficit. It would be a company in deficit.
All right, so just on the defections, 4 members of the House defected from the Labour Party to the APC.
Yes.
And, of course, one from the PDP to the APC, which is whom you've mentioned, Mrs. Odili Suenu. But I think it's important as it highlights the fact that when we talk of political parties not having ideology, so
Yes.
people just look for a political party that would suit their political interest at that particular time, ride on the wave that's happening at the moment, and then just win. I used one of them as an example, Donatus Matthews. Many people will remember him as the Okada driver from Kaduna State who emerged as a winner of his elections. And when he was interviewed, he said that initially he wanted to work for the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, and then he was urged to run for. And so he emerged as winner. And a few months, 1 year and a few months down the line, they've defected. And then it brings again that question that when you defect, should you vacate your seat as well? Because some people vote for the party as opposed to the candidate.
Agreed.
Okay, what Kestama was talking about is called reset. He says he's trying to reset. After spending 5 months in office, now he comes forward with this plan for change, which is for the next 6 months, to give the impression to the British people that his administration is really determined to ensure change in the United Kingdom. However, apart from those 6 milestones that he has talked about, NHS, you've listed them. I don't need to repeat them. Now, 2 things observe is that he seems to have walked back on some of the pledges in the Labour manifesto. One, on the promise on growth. The growth that they promised was that within 1 year of his being in office, or within his first term, Britain will be the highest growing economy within the G7. Now he has walked back on that. Now, the second thing is about net zero emissions. Now, he used to talk about 100%, before 2030. Now he's talking about maybe 99%. And then the plan for change was very silent on immigration. And for this reason, Daily Express this morning is saying that the Prime Minister is not focusing on the most important issue, which would seem, in their view, to be immigration.
Right.
In France, Macron spoke from the Golden Room of the Élysée Palace yesterday, of course saying the anti-Republican forces are the ones trying to pull down his government.
Yes.
And he commended Barnier, and he said also that he will not resign. He will complete his tenure till 2027, when there will be another election, and that any attempt to force a snap election would not be allowed. So that's where we are. He's looking at a number of candidates. He's not doing it yet. Barnier will stay as caretaker.
Yes.
But tomorrow will be the reopening ceremony of the cathedral that was engulfed, not the Notre Dame that was engulfed by fire in 2019.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bati. Thank you, Adefemi. Always great to see you. And see you again on Monday. Have a restful weekend. Make sure you rest.